All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to finally meet you. I've been following some of your social media content and I watched your interview with Paul the other day and I thought, hey, let's connect. So thanks for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me. And likewise, I've been seeing your interviews and your Breakfast Club, and I'm a big fan of everything you're putting out there. So I'm excited to be here. This will be fun.
Awesome. So I've got a couple topics that I want to talk to you about, stuff that you've been sharing on LinkedIn that I think the audience would be really interested in. But first, for context, like take me back through your history, when you became a therapist, when you became a practice owner, your exit. I want to hear about the background. What got
Sure.
you to where you are now?
Do you want the real long story? Take 27 minutes, or should I keep it under 3 minutes?
3 minutes is perfect.
All right. So I became a therapist in 1998. Got my license like beginning of '99. Got married around that same time, and became a PT in a huge corporate healthcare company. I don't know if you remember Health South.
Of course.
Yeah. Not many people I talk to younger than us remember Health South.
Yeah.
We remember Health South. So I was one of a couple 100,000 employees. It was a fine start to my career. I had fun, learned a lot, and then moved from Massachusetts to Rhode Island. Worked for a smaller private practice that had 3 or 4 clinics, and was totally unhappy there. Just the clientele I was treating, just the surrounding was just wasn't good, and I was experiencing what I now know as burnout. I didn't know the term back then. I just wasn't happy. I was looking elsewhere to get out of the PT world, like it's happening so much now in our profession. And then in May of 2003, my wife was also a therapist. Her and I talked, and we said, listen, I love being a PT. I love what I do. She was home with our first child at that time. And I said, I just have to do my own thing. Like, I'm not happy doing it for anyone else. So let's just do this. So I started what was called Foundation Performance Sports Medicine in May of 2003. And then over the next 20 years grew that. I was about to open my fourth office when I decided to sell at the end of 2021. So it was about a year of negotiation and talking to people. So I sold and exited successfully in 2021. I was with the new company for a while through the transition. And then I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get out of the clinic. So I started doing some consulting and business coaching, and that's kind of picked up. And I'm realizing didn't realize how much value I could bring. Over the 20 years, I learned so much, and I thought it was just common sense. And then I realized some of the things I learned are pretty valuable. So sharing those with others and helping people stay in the profession, and whether reignite their passion or hold on to their passion by doing their own thing and teaching them how to do it successfully, and you know, limiting some stress with my clients. It's fun, so I really enjoy that. And along the way, I was my niche was in the running world. So I saw a lot of runners from all levels. Worked with 15 Olympians and world class athletes to high school runners and everything in between, and developed a trademark called Runstrong along the way as I was building my practice. As I got a team underneath me and working, I was able to get some time and energy and put somewhere else. So I started that on the side as well.
Wow. Wow. So your story is very similar to my story. I am also married to another therapist. We also were working somewhere, left the hospital organization, started our own. I want to hear from you because I know a lot of people need to hear this. How did you make that transition from, okay, I'm a good therapist, maybe a great therapist, I want to treat patients in a certain way, to now I'm a business owner and I'm learning the lessons of how do I build a business that allows me to treat and do other things that I want to do? Because so many times those therapists kind of confuse and blend those worlds. How did you
Right.
make that transition?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it was out of necessity. Like when I started that business back in 2003, my plan wasn't, um, I didn't have a vision of growing this huge company. I just wanted to work for myself and do things my way. And I definitely didn't have a vision of finding a niche in the running world. I was an ex football player, gym rat, meathead back in the day. So I didn't do distance running. My wife was a triathlete. So that's the closest thing I got to a road race. I was going to watch her. So as I started the business, thankfully it grew pretty quickly, and then I had the need of just bringing on help. I was doing personal training and PT. I was doing everything. I was scheduling, cleaning, the typical story. But then I was turning people away. And I'm like, well, why am I turning people away? I need to keep them in my business. So I need to find a way to not turn them away and bring them in. So then I started building a team. And then I really enjoyed mentoring and building the team, still treating my patients. And then it just blinked my eye twice and it was 20 years later, just kind of a whirlwind of growth. So it was out of necessity. Like I just didn't want to see people go away. And then I started seeing the benefits of being a business owner. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of fun. I get a little more free time now. I don't have to treat 100 patients a week. So seeing those benefits allowed me to get more motivated and more skilled, and I got help myself and extra training to be a better business owner to grow the business.
So talking about the training, I know that, we super motivated when we started, grew quickly, like you said, knew we had to scale the team. We did everything initially. What or how did you get the training you felt like you needed to turn it from a job into a real business? Did you do it? Did you go somewhere? Did you buy books? Did you do a university setting? What was the training?
So almost yes to all of those things. So one, I just reading books. Like podcasting wasn't as popular back then, and there wasn't as much great information as people like yourself are putting out there. But I hired a business coach. I fought it tooth and nail with my wife, but she's like, "Listen, like we're getting underwater here. Like we're stressed with." It was growing, like it was becoming almost out of control. So I hired a business coach who came on with us for a year, and it was hands down the best money I've ever spent in my professional life, because I learned systems. She helped me create all the back end work that needed to be done. I became a better leader. I ran better business meetings. I learned where I was losing money, where I was making money. It was literally the best money I ever spent. And that just set the foundation for this growth. We had the one office at the time. So if it wasn't for my business coach, I don't know what would I be today, or what would the business have turned out to. And then there, just continuing reading, improving myself, making friends with other business owners, and just getting together for beer and coffee. These not official like business groups, and just talking to people and learning from each other, helping each other out. And then I got part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I got accepted to that, which was a great experience, and that was later on in the career. But I was continuing to learn. I just tried to improve my leadership skills, my communication skills, my business acumen, and I never stopped learning. Even to this day,
Right.
I got to keep learning. I've, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I try to surround myself with smart people, and I try to just continue to learn and keep an open mind.
Well, I think you're a PT at heart. We're always looking to learn. Like we love learning more than just about anything else. Question, was the business coach that you brought in, was this a therapist who had already grown a successful therapy practice, or was this somebody who was just successful in business? Because from my perspective, typically bringing an outsider in actually worked better for me, somebody who just understood business. But what worked for you?
Yeah, so this woman was not a PT. She was a former nurse turned administrator, insurance specialist, and then business consultant. She was recognized by the APTA for years. She's been retired for a while, but she's taught at every APTA concert, every APTA conference for I can't tell you how many years. So she was not a PT, and her daughter, who they owned a billing company as well, was not a PT either. So they came without that PT perspective, and I thought it was really good to get a non-clinical PT trained brain in there. So I thought it was
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, I love pulling from outside the profession. So you had a great interview with Dave Kittle. Anybody watching, I'll link to Dave Kittle's interview with you. But what was it like? Because I know a lot of therapists who, they have this vision of, okay, I'm going to exit. I'm going to put all this money in the bank. I'm going to do all these things. But, and I sold a practice, I sold a clinic location. But the idea is, almost everybody that I talk to, even those who have had a successful exit, it's not like they spend the rest of their life on a beach in Maui. They're still busy, they're still building, they're still creating.
Right.
What was it like for you? I know you had some time to stay with the business that you had just sold, but after the exit, like what was the vision for that?
It's a really good question. I wasn't prepared for after the exit. Fortunately, yes, I sold, and and made some money and was able to invest and do some things, but it wasn't enough where I could just sit on a beach in Maui for the rest of my life. And also, I sold at the age of 49. I had plenty of years ahead of me. I'm 51 now. I still want to keep working. I have to keep working, so it wasn't enough to just sit back. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to just do something totally different, and then I went through this identity crisis. Because I was known as Michael Silva, the running therapist. He works with these athletes. He runs this business. All of a sudden, that's gone, and I was like, all right, so I guess I'm still a dad. I'm still an aging Portuguese American. So just I went through a little bit of an emotional identity crisis, which was much harder than I expected. And through that, the consulting kind of fell in my lap. I had someone who reached out, they needed some help. My wife had been telling me forever, you need to consult, you need to coach people. You've got a lot of value underneath all that gray hair, so share it with people. So then that just kind of fell into my lap, and that's how I started it. And I wasn't prepared. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And unfortunately, at that time too, I went through some life tragedy. I tragically lost my sister. My dad had died, so our family was cut in half immediately,
Wow.
which was hard. And yeah, and I was so I was there. My brother and my mother and I we needed to be there for each other, and I had the time. So I think things happen for a reason. I think I didn't start this at that time because I would have been so in. When I go at something, I go at 110%. I don't know if I would have had the time to be there for my family. So I'm a believer that the universe puts opportunities in your lap when they need to be.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about some of the things you're doing now.
Sure.
I want to hear about the running program. I went and checked out your website. You're using Thinkific, which I'm a big fan of Thinkific.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the easiest thing. Was it Cocktails and Coaches? This is a live event. It's actually happening Wednesday. Is that right?
This Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, Jerry Durham, huge fan of Jerry. Jerry actually
Yeah.
came and visited my clinic years ago.
Oh, nice.
But tell us about this? Like, what are you guys talking about? I watched a little bit of your video intro, but give me more context.
Yeah, so it's myself, Jerry Durham, Randy Height, and Jason Collin. I met all three of those guys through different avenues. Jerry and I met online. We've never seen each other in person. Kind of like you and I meeting here. He saw some
Yeah.
of the stuff I was doing. I've been following what Jerry's doing for a while, and he thought, hey, we should have a conversation. So we kind of hit it off, and I taught him a little bit about tequila and sent him a few tequila bottles because he's got to get off the whiskey and do something different. um, so and I wanted to do something together with a group of like-minded, experienced coaches. So I met Randy through a mutual contact, out not through the PT world, but a medical device company put us in contact with each other, and we hit it off. Had a great conversation. And he's a guy who's been there, done that, worked, owned a practice, sold a practice, exited, all that type of stuff. And then Jason, I met at the APTA conference here in Boston, saw him present on like corporate culture type of topics, and I really resonated with what he was talking about, and it was very familiar. His practice that he has now is very similar to the one I sold. So I introduced myself to him, and I'm having conversations individually. And they said, "Would you guys want to get together and do something?" So they all said yes. We all met each other. We hit it off. We're like, a bunch of teenagers, busting each other up a little bit, but having fun. And we said, let's just start it virtually. Let's just have a conversation. No filters. Like, we're not teaching clinical skills or selling a 3 month challenge to increase your profits by 10,000 a month. Just having a talk. And I wanted to make it fun because our profession can be a little bit stuffy at times. So we had talked about cocktails and like a healthcare happy hour type of thing. So kind of we all together came up with the name of Cocktails and Coaches, and we start off the conversation. We each have a cocktail or a spirit or a drink that we talk about and why we like it. We share that. We have people to come in. They're having a cocktail with us, and we talk. We invite some of the other people to come in and talk with us. Some people just sit back and listen. But yeah, this week we're going to start off talking about patient engagement and the patient experience, which, as you know, Jerry talks a lot about. It's something I'm really passionate about, and we'll see where it goes. Last time was about 90 minutes. People can cut off early if they need to, but it's fun. And my goal is to turn this into a live event, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, I think there's a few of us that are kind of going in that direction.
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember there used to be PT Pub Night. Did you ever participate in any of that?
No, I have not.
So it's actually I think it's a trademark name. So it's kind of off the table, but nobody's done anything with it for years. I think the last event I saw was maybe 2017.
Oh wow,
So Dave Kittle, Jimmy McKay, and I created Let's Connect PT with the same intent. It's like, hey, let's get PTs together. Let's do live events. Let's do local live. Let's do virtual. But we just need to build the community back up
right,
again. I remember when I first came in back in, this would have been like early 2000s. We would do happy hour. We'd get together. Like there was always stuff going on.
right.
And then just over time, that obviously with COVID and everything disappeared. That's how I met Jerry. Jerry came by, he visited the clinic. We did a PT pub night locally here. Other therapists came out and we just had a great time together at a local restaurant. So
That's awesome.
I think a few of us are trying to get something like that going again. And
Right.
I can't wait to see what you guys do. Let's
Who
talk
knows?
about
Maybe we can collaborate. The six of us can put on even bigger events.
absolutely
That'd be fun.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
So you shared a LinkedIn post where you talked about 1 out of 26 unhappy customers actually tell you that they're unhappy. And I want to talk about this just a little bit because it's one of those things where you also mentioned in the recent interview I watched where you're like, Tony Maritato and he kind of understands his audience, and I treat a very different audience than you used to treat. I don't treat elite runners. There was a time where I was trying to direct and build my traffic toward kind of that high level adult athlete. We were in Sarasota, Florida, Siesta Key, very affluent community. It was the
Beautiful. Yeah.
ideal place, and I was doing a lot. I was a strength and conditioning coach before I was a PT, so I kind of had that in me. I made a pivot probably 10 years into private practice ownership to say, you know what? That's not the direction I'm going to go. That's not the practice I want to build. I want to go I want to zig where everybody else is zagging. But what's your experience? Like, what are your thoughts on, okay, if 25 out of 26 unhappy patients aren't telling us they're unhappy, what does that mean? How does that impact things?
It means we need to talk to our clients and get feedback more. I know I'm split on this. So I take one of the approaches like, okay, find out why they're unhappy, fix the problem, address it with your team. Try to make it right within that individual client, or redo your systems or your clinic, whatever it needs to be if you're seeing a consistent theme. But also, too, I don't want people to ignore the happy customers and the happy
Right,
clients, because why are they happy? Like, what are you
right.
doing well? Can I tell you a quick story? So I met the
Please,
yeah, I
please.
met this guy who at an all places a funeral. We were pallbearers at a funeral years ago. I don't even remember who died. I don't remember the funeral I was at, but it was I met this guy who was a higher up in Home Depot, and we were talking about just business and my business and his business, and he was talking about how there was this guy that came into a local Home Depot every fall, and in return the lawnmower that he bought that spring, and told him it wasn't working and he wasn't happy with the quality of the product. So they would take it back, give him his money. Then he'd buy a snowblower. And then every spring he would come back and return the snowblower, saying he wasn't happy with the quality of the product. And then they would give him his money back, and then he'd buy the lawnmower. I'm like, well, this guy's screwing you over. Like,
Yeah.
why aren't you guys doing anything? He's like, well, we at Home Depot feel we want to put our time and energy towards the 99% of the people who are good and don't take advantage of us. He's like, that's the key to our success. We don't focus on the 1%. So part of me, I think there's a good balance between the two of those, where you need to learn. Like, I think your worst clients or your most difficult clients could be the biggest learning opportunities for you, but also don't ignore what you're doing well and take care of the people who are enjoying it as well. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
No, it's a great perspective. It's the same as, I remember early in my career, I was like, I want to strengthen my weaknesses, but I could spend a lifetime trying to improve what I'm bad at instead
Right.
of doubling, tripling down on what I'm good at and just accelerating so much faster. They're just different philosophies, different ideas. Both of them have value. And even to this day, like you mentioned earlier, we're always learning. I used to ask clients like what we could do better. And in recent months, I was thinking about that question. I was like, what that question ultimately does is it tells my client to focus on what they weren't happy about, rather than saying, hey, what was amazing? And then, learning from that. So there's
Right.
always these tweaks. And I think that's the difference between somebody like you, somebody like me, like Dave Kittle, and all the practice owners that are out there that are successful is we're passionate about that business process. The same way clinicians, I still treat patients. I was in the clinic this morning. I'm going back this afternoon. We're passionate about understanding the patient condition and how we can improve the patient care experience and everything about what we treat. But we're also just as passionate about the business process and like being creative and figuring things out and improving the experience, all of those things. I think there's such powerful motivators. The other post you had that I wanted to ask you about, kind of similar. So Ben Funk. Ben was actually the first person I connected with when I joined Facebook back in, I think it was 2016.
Really?
Yeah. I joined his group. I met Gene. Gene would give me a hard time because I didn't want to put my face on social media at that time. And then, of course, once I
You've come a
did,
long way since then, Tony.
yeah. If you know anything about Gene, he hates polos, and I wear polos to work every single day. But that being said, so Ben was talking about 40 to 53% of the workforce is casually looking for a new job.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What do you think? We hear so much frustration on the employed therapist side. They're overworked, they're underpaid, unreasonable expectations for productivity. You were a private practice owner, now you're a coach. Like, what's your perspective on the employment situation, profession wide, not even just outpatient private practice?
Um, wow, that's a loaded question.
It is.
So I think it's so multifactorial. I think everyone's quick, and I think I mentioned in the post to blame it's the insurances, it's the corporate ownership, it's the bottom line, it's this, and yeah, that could be part of it. But also, I think there's a lot of things we can control. I can't speak to like SNFs or nursing homes or school PTs. I just have never worked in that world. The only thing I know is outpatient orthopedics. Um, but I know I think I was successful as a practice not because I was making the most money as other practices, but because I took care of my team. We created a decent culture, and I think I get the same vibe from you. And you've had a successful practice for a long time, and you're treating your community. I can almost guarantee if I walked in, I would feel the love in your office and between your staff and your patients. We did a similar thing. Like I'm reading a book, and I've read it. I'm on my second time reading it. It's a book on customer service from the Ritz Carlton
Yeah.
franchise. I don't know if you read it, the
Yeah.
Gold
Yeah.
Standard. Yeah, but
Yeah.
they have a great thing. It's like we're ladies and gentlemen that serve ladies and gentlemen, right? So respect your staff as much as you respect your clients, and that I don't know. I just think that whole motto of taking care of who takes care of you can go a long way, and I think we can retain a lot of therapists and keep them happy. Um, by just addressing those areas. But it's true. Like, yes, reimbursement could be better. Yes, certain health insurances are making us jump through fiery hoops backwards, over a dinosaur, over an alligator pit just to get authorization. We know what the challenges are. Um, and I think we just have to control what we can, continue to advocate for our profession, do what we can to try to make changes, and what we can't change, we just, you know, you deal with it, you move on, you find ways. I think you've been in some of the posts that I've loved that some of the information you put out is the creative ways that you build for some of your clientele with the 1 unit sessions. Like there's ways we can do this, and people are just have a blinded mindset of, I need my 30-minute slots or my 45-minute slots. I got to build this unit, and they're not even bringing in other sources of revenue. So I think by creating a little bit of breathing room financially, by getting a little bit creative in the ways you do it, the ways that I've done, and there's so many other people. There's all sorts of ways you can, but also just taking care of your staff, like seeing what fills their cup, what are they passionate about. Make sure you're feeding into that, because and what I love about Ben Funk, I've never met Ben, and I've used his posts and his information and given him credit because they put out so much important information that we need to take and use. And I think knowing that so many people are unhappy, like meet with your team, like because half of your team is looking for another job or would take another job if it presented themselves. So again, I don't know if I answered the question because I think it's such a loaded question with so many factors, but I do think we can do a better job of controlling what we can, making a better work environment, filling the passion of our employees and keeping some really good people in our profession. I think it's sad. And one of my motivators for doing what I do is I'm trying to help the PT profession one private practice at a time, because we can do it. There are ways you can.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think part of it is confusion. We come into business not as business owners. We didn't learn business. We learned how to be therapists.
Right.
And so we come into all of a sudden now business with a bunch of baggage that we think is the way you're supposed to do business. And so I remember coming in thinking, oh, well, I am paying a salary. We've agreed on a salary. Now you're going to do what I say because I'm going to pay you this money. And it wasn't too long before I realized these are professionals that I'm talking to. They're not going to do anything that I say just because of the money. And
Right.
I tend to have, different views. I've never hired somebody that was solely motivated by cash. So to incentivize somebody with $100 bonus means zero to the people that I hired. They're probably out there. They just never worked for me because those
Right.
aren't the people that I wanted in my organization and part of my culture. The people that I would hire were genuinely good people. They just wanted a treat. They wanted to be paid a fair rate that they felt showed that I valued them. But ultimately, they said, look, pay me this and just let me do my job and let me do it as well as I can possibly do it. And not a single person over 23 years has been the kind of person that held back, and I'm sure you were like this. I know I was like this. We put everything into whatever we're doing. It doesn't matter what we're getting paid, not getting paid. um, and so when I look at the frustration that's out there, I do think owners, especially smaller owners like us, need to understand my customer is not the patient. My customer is the therapist. I am delivering a platform for that therapist to provide the service they want to the patient. Patient's the therapist customer. The better I take care of my therapist, the better I can pay my therapist, the more revenue and freedom and all the things that I have that I've built for that therapist, the better the patient care experience is going to be.
Right.
Um, but I can also empathize, when we got to 5 locations and there were clinical staff that I never even met. The Florida operation was running completely separate from me. It's a different organization, so a person that you hire in a 2-person organization is not the same person as somebody comes in a 25 or 50-person organization. So to your point, it's multifactorial. It depends. Let's round the corner. I want to hear about your running program because I think looking at it, it could be a framework for so many other therapists across so many other niches. Tell me a little bit about why you kept that. Why didn't you just either sell it, or why didn't that go with the original business sale? And how big of an element of your overall business is what you're doing with the running program right now?
Sure. So it started like most things out of necessity. I saw a need. What I was noticing is as I get into the running world, which fell into my lap, and I was starting to see the runners of all levels, all my discharge plans started to look very similar, right? Everyone needed more dorsiflexion, more hip extension strength, more external rotation and abductor strength. Like I just noticed all these trends and I started thinking, man, if we address this stuff before they get hurt, maybe they won't get hurt. So Runstrong started off as a class that I taught. It was in my offices, but then I was taking up too much gym space and I had to like stop treating patients. I'm like, well, I can't do that. So then I hooked up with the local running company and started it in the running shoe stores. And I would do it. I taught 4 classes a week. It was sold out, 20 people per class, 4 classes. I did in the evening after treating like 15, 16 patients that day. But it started off as a strengthening class and conditioning program aimed at runners. And I was getting really positive feedback. People were feeling better while they were running. They had less aches and pains. They weren't getting injured as much. They were running faster. They were running easier. So it was like, oh, this is great. So then I started doing a lot of public speaking and turned it into, I kind of put it all under that umbrella of Runstrong. I trademarked the name early on, and that became part of my public speaking that I did. And then I created educational content, which you might have saw on the website. So I trained coaches on how to be better coaches and not, destroy our high school runners, and try to build runners for life and not just maximize the 4 years you get out of these kids and run them into you know, chronic injury and poor health and mental health. So, and I'm trying to, so I that was a big part of what I did as I consulted with lots of high school and college programs. So it all fell under that the run strong paradigm. And I've been doing slow motion video analysis. I still do it virtually for runners all over the country, and it just became an arsenal of products for the runner and the coach to keep people running, to keep people healthy. It was not a huge revenue stream. It definitely was, but we still made most of our money with our PT practice. And most of the money came from the insurance based PT practice because we basically had a hybrid clinic. Then it was our cash based services, like the brick and mortar services, and then Runstrong and my public speaking was a smaller part of that. But it was something I was passionate about. I owned the trademark. I didn't want to give it up, even though I might not ever go back into a clinic. I'm not sure yet. This is something I can do virtually. It's outside of the health insurance and injury paradigm. So I'm working with elite runners all over the place and trying to keep them healthy, getting them to run better. And it's a population, like I told you, I fell on by accident. But I tell you what, if you want motivated people that will run through a brick wall if you told them it would help their performance, work with runners. Like I know early on when I started, I had so many therapy friends that were like, "Oh, runners are so stubborn. I can't believe you want to work with them." I'm like, "No, they're not stubborn, man. You just need to know how to talk to them and channel that energy, and you got the best patients in the world."
Right.
So that's why I wanted to continue to do it. It built. I'm writing a book right now based on all my experience with in the running world. It's gone through three different iterations, which is why it's not being anywhere close to being published yet. But I think again, like why I chose to coach and consult in the small business private practice space because it was such a big part of my life. I made a lot of mistakes. I had some successes. I want to share it. Running has been such a big part of my professional career. I've made so many friends and colleagues between patients and referral sources, and it became such a big part of me and who I am. I didn't want to give that up. So giving the clinic and that up would have really, I told you I had an identity crisis already. That would have really I think beat me up. So I'm holding on to it and hoping to continue to do that alongside with my coaching.
I mean, that's the thing. Like so many of us, one more time, we do what we do because we love and enjoy what we do. There are things
Right.
that I do that aren't huge revenue drivers. I just enjoy it. It makes me feel good, you know. And as a naturally kind of creative person, I find that I just love the process. And even from a running perspective, it's like, yeah, I feel great after a long run. I've been dealing with an ankle thing here for the last 2 or 3 days, frustrating, driving me crazy. As soon as we finish, I'm going to go for a run. But I realized a long time ago, you have to enjoy the run, not just being done with the run, not just the end of
Right.
it, you know? And
Amen.
so for a program like this, I mean, is it putting millions in the bank account? Probably not, but it's something you enjoy. It's something that fills your tank, makes you feel fulfilled, and you can share. And so let's wrap it here. I'm putting up on the screen the screenshot, cocktails and coaches. So it's August 14th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. What there's a code on there. What's the best way for people to connect with you, either for this or just in general in the future?
Sure. Probably the best way to connect with me is through my website, which is michaeljsilva.com, or LinkedIn. As you know, I'm a little active on social media, mostly on LinkedIn. So you can find me just Michael J. Silva. Just look for the gray haired guy with the beard. And yeah, for the cocktails and coaches, the link is we have the QR code there. The link is usually in the description, and it's on Instagram as well. It'll be fun. It's free. Come join us. Like you're welcome, Tony. Come pop in if you'd like. Just bring a nice cocktail with you. We're doing it monthly, so we're doing it like the second or third Wednesday of every month. We're gonna hopefully get some traction, and like I said, maybe turn it into a live event.
Awesome. Mike, hang out right there. So, guys, go check out Michael's event, check out his LinkedIn profile. Amazing having you. Thank you so much.